Hey everybody, Salty D here, doing a quick overview on the wonderful game of OFC, Open Face Chinese. So let's jump right into it. OFC, it's a fantastic strategy game. There's no betting involved, first of all. You simply receive points based on how well you play each hand versus your opponent. If you've ever felt, that a player with deep pockets had an advantage over you, in no limit or PLO, the fact is that doesn't matter in OFC. There's no betting involved whatsoever. It's simply scoring based on your hand strength. Gotta thank Barry. He's really the one that turned me onto it. I messed around with it a little bit before, but then I started to study the game a little bit, started practicing playing with him, and it makes the game even more appealing to me. I think it'd be something that you guys will enjoy. There are a few variants of OFC, and what we'll review will be the regular version of OFC, which is what we have set up in the lobby on the app. So let's talk about how the game plays. To start with, you're dealt 5 cards that you place on any of the 3 lines in front of you. Like so. Okay? And that's how the game starts. Now, order of play follows the button, just like it does in Hold'em and PLO. So first to the left of the dealer button would act first, then the next player, and finally the button would act last. Okay, and this is showing you for 3 people playing. Of course, with 2 people, the button goes last as well. And just like in No Limit and PLO, position is still very, very important. And I'll show you an example of that. Let's look at this starting hand where we have 2 nines, 2 diamonds, and a king. Well, we might say, let's put this king up top, let's put these 2 nines in the middle, and let's put the 2 diamonds on the bottom to try and make a flush. But if we see the player in front of us lay out 4 diamonds right from the jump, well, we might reconsider how we lay out our hand. So again, position is very, very important, just like in the other games. And once we lay out our first 5, for the remaining turns, or pools as they're called, you are dealt 3 cards, 2 of which must be used on the board, and 1 is discarded. And that continues until all 13 spots are filled up on the board, and you'll have 4 discards on the side. Now, at this point, assuming you haven't fouled, which I'll explain here shortly, scoring is calculated. Now, to avoid fouling, you have to follow 3 rules with your final layout of hands. The first is that the bottom line of 5 cards must be the best hand of all 3 lines. So for example, if you have a pair on the bottom and a full house in the middle, you will foul. Okay, so your bottom line must be the best hand of all 3. The middle line of 5 cards must be bigger than the top line. And the top line of 3 cards must be beaten by the other 2 lines. Okay. Now one note, 3 card straights, 3 card flushes do not count on the top line. It's just a high card. And the best possible hand that you can get on the top line is trip aces. Now, I'll tell you, frankly, it's very rare. I've never done it. Because, of course, you can put 3 aces up top, but remembering our rules for fouling, we need to beat those aces in the middle line and then beat that on the bottom line. So you need to have like a full house and quads on the bottom to do, which is pretty tough to get. Now, when you don't respect this order that I've mentioned, you foul your hand. Okay. Now, I will tell you that when you foul your hand, you lose all points and all of your bonus points for that hand, which I'll explain all that shortly. Keep this in mind, though. Fouling, it's okay. Think of it just like missing a flush draw when you're playing Hold'em or PLO, for example. Fouling is okay. It's a natural part of the game. When you're playing OFC, you continually have to take calculated risk. For example, you might have 4 diamonds and you're trying to draw that 5th when you're taking a risk. You may have 4 to a straight and you're trying to draw to your 8 outs there. So you're taking risk, and fouling can be a frequent occurrence. So again, don't be afraid of fouling. Don't feel like you made a mistake because you fouled. The key is just to minimize how many times you foul. Okay, so assuming we haven't fouled, now we calculate our scores. So let's look at how scoring works. Scoring consists of 3 parts on each hand. The first part, the player with the best hand on each line earns 1 point. So using our example here, we can see that the bottom player has a pair of aces. The top player only has an ace high on the top line, so the bottom player would earn the point for the top line. Looking at the middle, the top player has 3 5s, The bottom player has 2 pair, so the top player would earn the point because 3 of a kind beats 2 pair still. And finally, the bottom line, we have a flush up top. Bottom player has a full house, so the full house wins and he gets the point. So that's the first part of scoring. The second part of scoring is what we call the scoop. If one of the players wins all 3 lines, they earn an additional 3 points for this. Now, in this example, as you can see here, neither player won all the lines, so there will be no scoop bonus. There's no 3 points awarded to anybody. But if someone were to win all 3 lines, they earn an extra 3 points just for that. And the third part of scoring are the bonus points. And with bonus points, the easiest way to think about it, the bigger your hand is on each line, the more bonus points you can win. And a key thing to remember is that these bonus points, they are rewarded to you regardless of whether you have the best hand on the line or not. So for example, if I have a king high flush on the bottom line and you have an ace high flush, you would still win the line for 1 point, but we would both get bonus points for both having a flush on the bottom line. So once we have all the points totaled up, we add them, each player adds their points together, we subtract the difference, and that difference is awarded to the winning player with the most points. Now, based on, and I'll tell you this 20 times, but the app does all the counting for you. You don't have to worry about counting all the numbers up. It does it for you. But based on the difference and the point that you're playing, how much you're playing per point, tells you how many chips, how much money is awarded to the winner. So if you're at the $1 table, for example, in this scenario, the bottom player would win $15 for this one hand. If you were at the 50-cent table, the player would win $7.50. 15 points times 50 cents. Again, obviously the app does all the scoring for you, so you don't have to worry about it too much, but you want to be familiar with how scoring works and how the points work. This is a great chart. I'll include a link to it below the video. But what this shows you is what hands are worth based on what line you earned them on. Because hands have different values on different lines. It's harder to put a full house in the middle and not foul than it is to put a full house on the bottom, for example. So based on the line and the hand, you earn extra bonus points. On the bottom line here, you can see trips are worth nothing. Straights are worth 2 points, flush is 4 points, on the way down to royal flush is worth 25 points. In the middle column here, the middle line, it's basically doubled. Everything gets twice as many points for each hand. And the top row gives you points for anything from a pair of sixes, which gets you 1 point, 1 bonus point, all the way up to trip aces, which will give you 22 bonus points. Now again, the app does all the math for you. There's not a lot to worry with, but it is very important to become familiar with how the numbers work, because you want to know how much potential you can earn from your hand. Now, another important point to remember is that you can only win or lose what you have on the table. Let's say for this example, we're at the $1 table, and the bottom player won 15 points, which is $15. Unfortunately, he only has $10 in play, so even though he would have been awarded $15 because of his points, he doesn't have that much. The maximum he can win is $10. Likewise, if the top player is to lose $15 but only has $10 in play, they would know an extra $5. The maximum you can win or lose is what you have on the table. Now, let's take a look here. Let's keep going here. Again, of course, the app does it all for you. Now, there is one other thing I want to talk about. It's an additional piece to playing OFC, and that's Fantasyland. It's another layer to the game. It makes it pretty fascinating. Let's take a look at it. Anytime that you can put queens or better up top, again, obviously without fouling, you will enter Fantasyland on your next hand. Now, some players, like myself, will shoot for Fantasyland every single hand anytime they can. Some players go for it when they have little risk of fouling. You'll figure out which approach is most comfortable for you, which one you prefer as you become more familiar with the game. But whenever you enter Fantasyland, you are dealt 14 cards all at one time, and you see them all at once. Okay? And it takes all the guesswork out of putting your hand together. Let you place your cards in the best possible order to score the maximum points. In the end of your 14 cards, you'll place 13 of them, obviously, and you'll have one discard. One nice feature about the app is that it will show you here at the bottom of the screen all the possible hand combinations you can put together based on the cards you have in your hand. So we can see that, that I can put together a pair, two pair, straight, flush. There's no full house because I don't have trips to play. And all I have to do is click on one of those buttons down there. It'll pop up my flush cards, and I can drag them right up onto the board to play them. I can pull them right back down as well. It's a great little tool that can help you see how to put together the best hand at the most points possible. So definitely when you get into Fantasyland, you want to use that. And again, let's see what's next here. If you have trips up top, if you're in Fantasyland and you end up with trips up top or quads on the bottom, again without fouling, you'll stay in Fantasyland on the next hand. And that's a great way to make some big money in this game. It's tough to do, but if you're able to do it, it can definitely have a huge payout for you. One other little thing I want to show you guys is that the app has a nice little feature here on the left-hand side that tells you how many of each suit has not been shown to you yet. Great to help out with knowing how many hearts you have left to draw to a heart flush, for example. So definitely make use of that. So that's basically the gist of the game. If you like strategy games, it's a great game to learn, a great game to play. Typically, it's a softer field. So if you can learn the game in a relatively short period of time, it's usually a good place to find to make some money, which I do like that, of course. I do want to go over one last thing here. I want to share with you the other variants of the game. Now, we don't have them up in the lobby. We have the ability to. If somebody wants to play them, we certainly can. I would recommend, of course, getting familiar with regular OFC before you worry about any other variations, because there's different strategy to those. But let's go over them regardless, because I want you guys to know about them. The first one is Progressive OFC. And with Progressive, you get extra cards on your first Fantasyland based on the strength of your top hand. So, for example, if you have Queens up top when you go to Fantasyland, you'll get 14 cards when you're in Fantasy as normal. However, if you have Kings up top, you'll get 15 cards. If you have Aces plus up top, you'll get 16 cards. And it doesn't seem like maybe that big of a deal, but those extra cards let you put together some massive hands. This is how you put together straight flush hands and quads when you're in Fantasy. And it's also the way that helps you re-fantasy a lot. So I love Progressive. It's my preference to play. A little different strategy, but it's definitely a variation that you might want to check out once you get comfortable. The next one is Ultimate OFC. Same thing as Progressive. However, if you are able to get Kings plus on the top row and quads on the bottom, for example, or trips up top, you'll get those extra cards when you re-fantasy. That's the big difference with Ultimate. And the last version, which is crazy, is Ultimate plus Jokers. And this is a swingy game. It's the same thing as Ultimate, as I described above, but it also includes 2 Jokers in the deck that you can use as wild cards. So it's a swingy game, but definitely for the gamblers. So that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have any questions, throw them out in the group chat. Message us here directly, ask somebody, sit down and watch OFC, watch some other people play. It's a great game to learn, and hopefully you found this useful, guys. Thanks a lot.